I can't.
Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to be starting now. And good morning to those of you who are watching on Zoom. Please find a seat. And it's just so nice to see you all. And I'm going to be redundant and say this. I know everyone's heard it a number of times already. Happy New Year. Yeah, with the time, state employees, whatever, it's also paid. But again, I'm so happy to see all you here in person, and also those of us that are reaching out to us via Zoom. And we're just excited about being able to focus on the work, and we have a robust agenda, and we have some very interesting, very prominent guests this morning to bring some very important information to us, and I think it's going to be extremely important that we digest it and we want to find a way to help. Because at the end of the day, that's our role, to partner, network, and find ways that we can be an ally, a stakeholders, and a supporter. This would be a great example when we get engaged with the conversation this morning. This time.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Racial Equity Consortium again. As Dr. Williams said, we've had a great discussion to be had this afternoon, this morning. And I appreciate you all for being here. Just so that we can make sure that we have a record. If we can go around the room and just state your name, what organization you're a part of, and then talk to our colleagues on the virtual space so that we can have a roll call. So I will start. So those who raise record consortium. Mona to see you raise your hand.
Jordan Stetson, with the Racial Equity Consortium of Ambassador.
Superior Delaware Division of Public Health.
Carol Manning, Delaware Department of Corrections.
Good morning, Cassandra Davis, Delaware Department of Correction.
George Beckerman, Viking Gazette.
Daniel Griffin, MTI AME Church, Frankfort, Delaware.
Good morning, Marlene Saunders, let the truth be told.
Kareem McLemore, Delaware State University Correction.
Jennifer Tompkins, Metropolitan Loans and Urban League.
Jamie Hubbard, co-chair of the Racial Equity.
Who Williams, chair of the racial consortium, and also with the president of the North.
Michael Nicholas Pierce, Racial Equity Consortium.
And if we can have our colleagues on the virtual space, please introduce themselves, come off mute.
Good morning. This is Wally Rushdan with Barnes and Thornburg, voting member of the commission. And I also note that the volume is very good. The audibility is a bit muffled. So when you speak, for those of you who have a cadence that's a little bit quicker, maybe you might just want to slow it down just a little bit so that we can hear you a bit better in the virtual platform. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Willie Scott, Delaware Sierra Club.
Good morning, Marcus. So go ahead.
Barnes and Thornburg, appointed by the governor.
Legislative Anna at Delaware State University.
Siobhan White, Delaware Office of Supplier Diversity.
Carol Hubbard, Department of Labor.
Good
Morning, everyone. I'm Erin Rich. I'm from Delaware's Birth to 3 Early Intervention Program.
Yeah, can you a little bit more?
Looking forward to that.
Well, thank you all again for joining, and I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Huddington to.
Can you guys hear me? This is Corey.
We can hear you now.
Yes.
I can't hear you guys. I don't know what's going on here.
Corey, you can't hear, can you?
Can you hear us now? Can everyone else hear us on the Zoom?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll log out and log back in if you guys can hear me.
Okay. Oh.
Okay. Well, it was a great pleasure. I had this opportunity of introducing the individual who's getting ready to come to big presentation to us. I've known her for quite some time, and truly she has a wealth of knowledge, and she always shares. I love the way she shares. But I want to present this and introduce the other, Dr. Marlon Saunders. She's with the truth be told and privilege. I expected to be told today.
Well, good morning, everyone. I am Jane, representing you can show me what So, this is perfect. Well, again, good morning. We are creating very pleased that we have received the invitation to be with you this morning. To talk with you about how community organizations are working in the community with the school district and the Department of Education to implement HB 198 right all the way. Just want to say that slogan, HB, implement HB 198 right all the way, comes from the Secretary of the Department of Education, Mark, who during the course of one of our several community input meetings, used that phrase to talk about his commitment, as well as the education commitment to making sure that Black history, Black American history, is integrated in curricula in charter schools and in public schools. And what he essentially meant by implementing HB 198 right all the way, it was about giving a perspective that's not just about giving a superficial education, regarding African Americans, simply talking about doing Black History Month, for example, the notable persons, who are recognized during Black History Month, but really going deep into the history, including talking about the culture, the values, and the civilization that existed prior to being Africans being brought to America to work for free, to boost their country's economy. This morning, I'm going to be profiling 3 organizations that are working towards implementing HB 198 right all the way in partnership with the Department of Education. 2 terrific individuals with whom we have been working, and I wrote down the names and titles so that I can get it right. One person is Dr. Monica Dent, who is the Associate Secretary for Academic Support. The other person with whom we've been working is Dr. Michael Feldman, who is the Social Studies Education Associate Written Instruction, and the person who works also with the professional development programs. These are 2 individuals with whom Better Truth Be Told and the community have been working really since the latter part of 2020. As I indicated, we want to profile for administrators. Let the truth be told, is a small quarterly newsletter that began 2 years ago. I brought some individuals together to come up with a vehicle, a way for African Americans to speak what they think is true. And so the paper is written by them, you know, and for them. If you go to the next slide. So, as we began to publish, the newsletter, one of the things that we decided we wanted to do was really stay on top of HB 198. So the mission of the newsletter with respect to HB 198 is to facilitate collaborative relationships with communities, and the school and the Department of Education and school districts to implement HB 198 all the way. To that end, we began having, and let me tell you why we did that. Just before the law was passed, and after the law was passed, we probably heard pushback regarding HB, teaching Black history. Some people were saying, why teach Black history? Why focus just on Black history? Why not the history of other groups? Teaching Black history will make white students, uncomfortable. But thankfully, through the village leadership of the principal sponsor of HB 198, Representative Sherry's Walker, the law was passed and implemented. And of course, the law requires every school district and every charter school to teach Black history around 8 minimum content requirements. So, because we heard and communities were concerned about how genuine the Department of Education and school districts would be about teaching African American history or Black American history. And the reason I say that is our notion is that our experience in this country is American history. You cannot have American history without talking about the contributions and history of African in America. So given the concern that the Black community had about the sincerity of the construction, we decided to pull together what we call community interviews, which started in 2021. We've had about some Jane has been in several of these meetings. And community people have been very upfront, about their concerns, including how can we give input, give recommendations, who do we need to speak in order to offer input. Next slide. And since 2021, these are some of the activities that the Truth Be Told have been a part of initiating. We've had 7 community meetings involving aunts, uncles, parents, grandparents, community leaders who have been a part of the meetings, talking with the Secretary of Education, talking with HB 198 leaders. We will show you the link to get to that, but HB 198 leaders, individuals in the school districts with whom people should talk regarding their concerns, their issues, and their recommendations about the content that's being taught. We've had 5 meetings with the Department of Education, more important meetings that happened at the Department of Education with Secretary Howard and his leadership team. I want to go on record in saying that I believe that the Secretary and his leadership team are sincere about implementing HB 198 right all the way. I also want to go on record of saying that he is equally aware of some of the realities, that need to be taken into account. One of which is that he doesn't know Black history. And he's been very upfront in saying this has been published. And he believes that if we can help him with this, and Dana can help him with this, I think he said something between 5 and 7 years. Okay, and teachers to get the kind of content that they need in order to implement HB 198 right also. Correspondingly, the school district has implemented, professional development seminars, for, teachers. Some of them which include, what do you know about African American history? What don't you know? What is in your toolbox? What is not in your toolbox? What tools you know are you using to teach your content? How can you read about, something, helping each other? The next meeting, and George, I'll let you know this, it was established. The next meeting between the HTV 198 input group and the Department of Education will be February 12th. The following meeting, Dr. Howard will get his leadership meeting will be in July 2024. Among the things that we have been talking about happening in 2024 is happening, continuing the community input meetings with the HB 198 leads. We believe since education, the consumers of education are students, that they need to have a voice in talking about how this content has impacted them and what their suggestions are enhancing the instruction, and that is going to happen. That is going to happen this year. Resources that have been used to connect the community to HB 198 include the newsletter that the truth be told. If you put the mouse on the link, this will take you to our newsletter. And this is the field that you can use to subscribe, and we encourage you to do that. I believe it's a powerful piece of it's a powerful resource for the community. One of the things that we do is to encourage ordinary people to contribute. Oftentimes, people get the people or reach out to people that write and say, anything that is better than that was more forward. Or someone, and you say, no, you just submit what it is you want to say, and we'll keep it so that the expression you so we haven't getting people to contribute articles. What we have been doing is making the community aware of the Black education reports. The law requires the Department of Education every year to issue a report. If you put the click on that, mouse on that, and click that, that link will take you to this page, and it will give you last year's report, and it will give you this year. If you look at last year's report, you can see that there's 912 pages. There's a lot of feedback about that. If you click 2024, you will get the report for 2023. And what that report will do is that it will actually list the content that each school district is imparted in terms of Black history. Go back to that, baby. To that. Scroll back up. Keep going backwards. Please. Okay, if you scroll down to where it says 2023, 2024, one of the things that the school district did in response to criticism that they received about the report is that when last year when you scroll through the report, it was just so dense, and if your mouse started going these things, you would pass, about the particular school district or that you were interested in. But what they've done is that they have listed each report for each school district. So you can go to the Indian River School District, go down to Indian River School District, for example. You can go click that. You can go to any school in your district, click that link, and find out what Black history is being taught from kindergarten to 12th grade. And everybody. Next slide, please. I'm going over my 8 minutes.
No, you're fine.
Okay. I'll go back. Okay, the other thing that we have done, go down to HB 198, please. What we are advocating, what we are telling community people to do, we have something we want to say about HB 198, get to your, and in your topic, you have a list of each meeting per school district per charge. This is another thing about which I want to go on record. The league with whom we have been working, I will express and demonstrate a sincere interest in working with you as partners to implement HB 198. Some of us come up in a period where teaching children was never the total responsibility of parents. It was a partnership of between parents. My mother was stricken polio at 26, and I can remember her getting the PTA to talk about, talk about that. So these are the people with whom people are to engage about HB 198. As you can imagine, some of the school districts are a little more ahead, than others, but these are the people that we need to say, we need this. Okay. I think I'm done. Now what we want to do is to give examples of initiatives in the community that are partnering with the school districts and schools to teach HB 198. My church is Antioch A&E in Frankfurt. My pastor is Reverend Daniel Griffith. And what we did in July is to offer a Black history course in the 6 sections. And our main framework was eyes on the prize. Anyone want to talk about that?
Yes.
You said it was.
The reason I don't want to talk is because once I start, I don't stop. So anytime, any of you can just raise your hand and say that's enough. And I'll stop. Right. At Antioch, well, I have to go, my history, my interest in, it's not just Black history, but African history. It goes back to when I was director of a Profound here at Dell State, and I ran across Anik's bookstore in Wilmington, and my supervisor, Ozzie Hall, some of you might know, was the one that really pointed me in that direction. And my concern became that whenever we talk about Africans in American history, it always starts with slavery. But as a person who was interested in ministry, I found the Bible full of references to the superiority and supremacy of African culture. And somewhere between the time of Christ and about 1500, something changed. And there didn't seem to be a record of it. And I just began to research, and I have it's not the greatest library, but it's a significant library now, where the evidence is clear that there was history not being taught, not being discussed, as a matter of fact, being suppressed. So over time, I kind of became an amateur historian. What was really interesting, when I went to seminary, I went to ITC in Atlanta, it began to complete the picture, because Bible history is real consistent with the history as we now know it to be. And it's the way it was taught in Western civilization that was the problem. And so from that, I just began to talk about it. And I had one Old Testament professor who talked about everything. If you want to know the actual history, just look at how the Bible refers to Africa. The Bible refers to Africa as where people went to for safety, where people went to for security. Particularly Egypt, which is on the continent and in Africa, was a place of great wealth and great culture. And from that, I was able to kind of fill in some gaps, and then I began to realize that, again, as I said, it wasn't just, it wasn't the problem of history, it was who was teaching it and how they were teaching it. So it led me to a point where now, as I pastor, I started early on including that in sermons and handouts and readings that I would give. And I just came to the conclusion that I just made a little note here that the exclusion of any history is an incomplete record. It's just a perspective. It's not history. And so we talk about teaching African and American history. That's still just a portion of the African experience because you have to begin where it began. So when Marlene came to the church, she came on fire. Boy, did she come on fire. And she kind of shaken the foundation of our church, but we've gravitated, we've embraced her. And she's been very instrumental in establishing first the Eyes on the Prize series, and then getting involved with contacting Dr. Pamela Jerns at Indian River School District. We're meeting with her next week. This next week, by the way, too. Meeting with her next week to kind of coordinate, not to tell them what they should be teaching, but to offer some assistance. You know, between her, Dr. Osei, Sister Karen Lewis, and myself, we have resources that will allow us to hopefully add to at least what I'm concerned about is in Florida about 3 or 4 years ago, there was a student who wrote wrote her for her report. She chose the subject in Black history. I can't remember what it was. But the teacher graded her and gave her an F because she didn't think the history was accurate or relevant. It's anecdotal because I don't have the facts, but the experience was reported and well documented. What I'm interested in is when we go to the River School District, it's not so much that whatever we say do, but honor the inclusion of the history, validate the inclusion of the history. Because I might know about Abu Bakr in a second. Nobody who's raised in Western Europe, who's educated in Western European system, they're going to know that. Eurocentric system, they're not going to know that. They're going to say it's a lie. And now in this particular, it's even more. I hope that we can encourage the school district. If the information is verifiable, we're going to give them a set of resources. If it's verifiable, it's something that we can document. It can be documented in a reasonable place. Then honor that student's report, honor that student's reading, honor that history, not just as a special event, but that's the history, that's this student's history that they want to report and discuss. And so I hope that we get a chance to have that conversation, because I think we will. And I hope that we'll have some impact. It's just a passion of mine. It's been for a long time, and I'm going to stop talking now. I feel like a pastor knows when you feel like the crowd saying, okay, pastor, it's lunchtime. But that's where we are. That's what we're trying to do.
Well, this is one of the flyers that we use to announce each session from July to November. And it will indicate that one of the facilitators was Dr. Osei, who is the faculty and absolutely wonderful. What we're going to be doing, just to emphasize the point that David made, not going to the evening with a student in our meeting with Dr. Osei during the fall. But this is our offer in terms of amplifying what we're teaching. So we have developed a template where we are giving resources, events, and people by each minimum requirement. And so we're using the 1619 project, for example. We're using the book Africans in America. We're using the seminal text history text by John Pope Franklin, has his own background. By the way, from slavery to freedom, as well as a host of other elements. And as soon as we send her email, asking to meet with her, she's probably going to back. So, and I think this is something of a school district that at least demonstrate what we sit down in the
Can I just say that I was really surprised at the Southernmost District in Delaware, that Indian River School District is serious, at least on face value, seems to be serious accomplishing their objectives. And I was really surprised that they were really welcome. So,
Our next simple item is the, biking crash. So what's your on? Thank you.
You're welcome. Maureen and I met about 5 years ago. We were both on planning committees that Charlotte King had pulled together to put on a program on racism and anti-Semitism. The program was successful, but then there were other programs. My encounter with Dr. Saunders was successful and has continued and will continue. Viking Gazette is a newsletter that we created. When I say we, there are 4 of us directly involved, Dr. Saunders, 2 other people, myself, and it is a newsletter of sorts for current events reporting to high school students and their teachers. Why current events? Well, a lot of reasons, but 2 are really significant for us here today. One is that HB 198 includes current events as one of the contextual elements of teaching Black history as another. So that's legislatively established. Secretary Mark Holliday, the Department of Education, has specifically said in interviews and elsewhere, current events is important. Current context for historical developments, Black history is another. And the third reason is in order to get smart about high schools, I was in high school. I don't have any teaching licenses at all, but I am a civics advocate and have been for 4 decades. I started substitute teaching in Sussex, 3 high schools. One of those high schools was a mile 0.7 from a Confederate flag flying in Georgetown. You may be aware of that, you may remember that, the issue is still there. But I had an opportunity, the only opportunity I ever had as a substitute teacher, to get in front of the class and teach about local current events. And the point of my discussion with the students was, do you know that there's a Confederate flag flying 1.7 miles from here? Nobody knew it. I knew at that point that he is information to 12. And I had an hour-and-a-half time of lesson with these students to go through the idea of what local current events actually means. It's awareness about what's going on. It's relevant to us individually, and I'm talking mostly here about civics-oriented local current events. So awareness of these, relevance to people's lives, and actionable. You can actually get involved in things locally, national current events, global current events, really hard to get involved with. But local, you can go to the meetings, you can write letters, you can organize groups, you can do research and read books. So with that in mind, my colleagues and I decided to put together this newsletter to provide to teachers and their students conceptually in all of Delaware's 44 public high schools. That's district schools and charter schools, 44. So challenging things going around 44 different schools. I live in a Cape Henlock school district. I've got most of my subbing there, we started off with Cape schools. This will expand over the course of the next 18 months or so to 5 other schools in Suffolk County, and then maybe the 4 others behind that. And you make the point, Matt, and this is a very important point, when we're talking about local current events, we're talking about things that are reported in the newspaper. So that's the resource that's available to everybody to see what's going on and to reference when we're talking with our neighbors or friends or classmates, families, about, hey, what's going on? Well, our local newspaper is the Cape Gazette. And Cape Gazette covers the Cape region, and it covers the neighboring school districts, and it also covers the impact in Suffolk County and in Cape Henlock of state and county activities that are relevant to local civic action. Molly is going to move on. So that's the context. I'm going to walk through some of the content of what we do, and I'm going to walk through the HB 198 related content. We've published 18 issues of this so far. We're working on the 19th issue, and every issue has at least one story that's related to HB 198. We have at least 4 stories, sometimes 5, but certainly whenever we have 4, whenever we have any, HB 198 is referenced in there and is used. And you'll see how it's used in remarkable, inventive, and creative ways. And guess who the HB 198 editor is? That lady over there. Get the next slide. So, James Jones was a neighbor of mine. I call him a friend. He's an eminent scholar in psychology from another university up there in the other county. And he made the press because he got an award from one of the schools that he went to. So here we were featuring a story about a leading Black intellectual teacher neighbor, lives a half a mile from the high school. By the way, this is distributed to 2,000 students and 175 teachers and staff every week. Next slide, please. So I wanted to put in a table of contents here. I forget which issue this is from, but you'll see this lead story here is Black history is American history. And Dr. Saunders chose to write about Eleanor Roosevelt and her role in civil rights and leadership and human relationships. Fireside chat to discuss Eleanor Roosevelt. There was an article about an eminent scholar who was the executive director of the FDR Presidential Library and was able to speak about Eleanor Roosevelt. You'll see that the other topics here range over any number of things. They're all local, rooted in an article in the newspaper. Each article comes with a teacher's guide, and the teacher's guide has a number of sections. This teacher's guide, which Dr. Saunders prepares, focused on an article about the League of Women Voters. And so this piece, by the way, there's a lot more to a teacher's guide, but you'll see the links to key documents. Black women and the right to vote, the history you didn't learn. Also how to vote in Sussex County. Perfect, that's real civic stuff. Next slide, please. Thank you. This is a slide about, there was an article about this event in Sussex County a few weeks back. It was a musical event. And Dr. Saunders turned it into a story about music and the role of music in the civil rights movement, making it relevant. The actual event took place at Epworth, UMC, in the neighborhood. This was very local again, and people could connect with it. Next slide, please. This is the best one of all. Dr. Saunders just looked up to make sure I was the right thing. A couple of months ago now, the Lewis Historic Society held an event. Lewis travels back to 1773. Imagine Lewis, 1773. Keep it in mind, this was sort of a recreation of that celebratory day. There were several pictures that came along with this particular article. This was one of them. They all had the same characteristics, with no black people in those pictures. No black people in the pictures. There were no people attending this event. Something was missing. Part of Black history. This is part of the story of Black history. Dr. Saunders picked it up, wrote a piece about it. Every piece that Marlene writes starts off with an assertion that this is about HB 198, and then she makes a couple of points here why it's important. This article prompted the executive director of the Lewis Historical Society to give a call and say, "You're not characterizing us properly." And we got back to him and said, well, you would get proper stories into the newspaper so people can connect with it and make it relevant. So I told you about the background of this. I showed you some of the stories and the approach that we take. And I'm glad to chat with any of you about it who want to explore the idea for your local high schools. There's got to be a newspaper that covers the territory with whom we can partner so we get the real stories that get to people. Thank you very much. Glad to take it.
First of all, thank you all of you. So at the time, we'll be open for questions.
I just have one thing to say in terms of takeaways. For us, there are several new takeaways on this particular. One is that some of you know it took decades to get the people online. And the bulk of them, hard to get that are ordinary people in schools. And I think the projects we have built show ordinary people can do not with the Department of Education, with the HB 198, and ensuring that HB 198, is implemented in the right. The other thing we have found is that we take the director as well as the content that they recommend to others. It's not about castigating workers. Okay, the history talks about the whole history, ultimately, for example, now Africans and Americans, and whites both together. Not only for justice for African Americans, but justice, for everyone. We know the history of the civil rights movement. It was about human rights more, the other takeaway is that Dr. King said everybody can be free with concern. And one of the reasons we push community to be involved is that their input is so important, it is so critical, and it is so creative and powerful in terms of words that we use to express the importance of history. Fannie Lou Hamer didn't have a doctoral degree, but when I finished listening to her, I felt like I could walk on with in terms of being how.
She made those significant in. So,
Okay, thank you very much.
thank you very much. And really between, our virtual participants and also, our virtual opportunity, if you have any questions and or comments, and I have some of mine in read. Reference to others to let you ask any questions you might have, comments. And we'll start with our virtual, we'll do the reverse. We'll start with our virtual participants first.
Hi, good morning. This is Wally Rushdan. First of all, I want to thank the presenters for the very thoughtful presentation. It's always refreshing when you write down questions that you have at the beginning of a presentation, and then your questions are answered in large part because of the thoughtfulness that clearly went into your discussion points. So my limited question that I have from the list that I originally prepared is what success looks like. This is a weighty topic. It's clear to me that there's a lot of intentionality, and I'm aware of a lot of the initiatives that went into HB 198. I have some involvement with some of that work through some other civic engagements that I have, but I'm very curious to hear your thoughts about, in the context of this consortium, we're trying to look at ways to promote equity, to expand how equity shows up in people's lives in a very practical way. And this topic is one that acknowledges that there's been a long time coming to give education a proper calibration with respect to African American history. But doing that means we're right-setting a lot of past practices and educating the educators about how to do this work. You could design a great system of procedures, but then there's some upscaling for the educators to educate the children. So I'm curious if you can sort of give your sense of what success looks like from this committee's purview to say, if we can get this going, this is actually what equity will look like for this particular initiative in 5 years, in 10 years, in 15 years, because I don't suspect that we're going to have an awareness amongst the entire spectrum of community and children soon, because this is just a lot of right setting, so to speak. So can you speak to that issue to the extent you have any opinions or ideas about how we measure success from this initiative in the minds and hearts of our children and the communities for Black history?
Okay, well, one tangible outcome for me is that there will be a broader receptivity to the concepts being included in curriculum, and teachers will understand that if they are going to equip students to be responsible, thoughtful citizens, they need to know everything. I think another tangible outcome that we're seeing now is more involvement on the part of youngsters in terms of how they are engaging with teachers and educators. We have now called Up for Learning, led by Lindsay Holder. She wrote a lot of work for the Granby District, and they are interacting a great deal with the key leaders in that school district. Raina Allen, she is a partner. She's a part of the team, the HB 198 team, and she is with our Black Student Summit. Is really bolstering how students are able to talk in thoughtful ways with adults, about this topic. I think another tangible outcome is that when you look at the resources that teachers are using, you'll see the safety project. As part of the bibliography. You'll see John Hope right from slavery to freedom. You'll see Africans in there. And you'll see other listings that include how blacks and other groups work together for democracy, in this country. And I think that will kind of reduce some of the defensiveness, that people have, oh my God, I'm talking about Black history, so that means, I'm a white person, that means I'm going to be attacked. That we will do away with that preconceived notion that that's what what we experience is what we did. I'm looking forward to churches like Antioch. My word for Antioch is that Antioch Pops. That churches, will be more involved in teaching their congregations about Black history and involving the congregations in planning. One of the things that we learned with our experience is that the way we get part is a little too heavy. You want to talk about that a little bit?
I was simply say that we went in with the eyes on the prize. We went in with this, we're gonna have this grand discussion and grand revelation of civil rights struggle and what it meant and what were the various components, how it broke down the social impact. And our people literally came to the meeting with a marble tablet, ready to record the history. And so we began at a level that was so far above where they were. But it was a valuable lesson because for the people who were persistent, they got the umbrella of what we're trying to do. And now we're gonna go back and revisit how it maybe even to think this summer, having a Black History Institute where we normally have Bible study. And that way they're already conditioned to that time frame, but then just kind of give them information. But I think to the question more directly, I think what I hope to attain is basically starting to, if you normalize the teaching of the history, normalize the acceptance of the history, then you also humanize those people we're talking. Particularly with Black folk, we've been discussed in so many terms other than human. And 3/5 of man is kind of a misnomer in a way because it's talking about your power and your power versus your humanity. But it just really reveals how people were willing to change the rules just so they could accomplish whatever ends they were. What we hope to do over time is like a corrective lens. History is always from the perspective of the person doing the history. But with a corrective lens, we can say, yes, this is true. Yes, this is also true. And there was a season where both were true at the same time, but now we're moving in a different direction. And we can be equal at the table. Because in my social work program, my area for my final paper was Black youth and Black youth self-esteem. And I can't remember the research now because that was at least 20 years ago, but the researchers said that there was no outside community that could affect or impact Black youth self-esteem. It's the Black community that does that. It's the Black community. So we have to do a little reflective stuff as well. When we're asking other people to see us as complete and total human beings, we have to do the mental thing because we have been impacted by being 400 years in this system of oppression. So we have to be willing to have an honest discussion about how we view ourselves and what we're imparting when we say, with a Black president in the White House, we say Black people can't be president. Mm-hmm. There's something that we've been wired, it's part of the cultural wiring, how we rewire ourselves. And that's what I hope.
That's a short opportunity to be like response,
Sure. Well, there's one measure that I have in mind. Think of me as publishing this newsletter. We published 18 issues so far, all directed at Cape and Northern High School. I want to continue publishing. I want to have the school say, we want you next year and the year after. I want to have another school say, we want you to get started. So from a publisher's point of view, the measure of success is subscribers and users. I will, I think that's enough. I guess that's helpful.
Good. So as a black, actually, rather weird about I want to talk about that. And more importantly, I was kind of trailblazer at that other university years ago, where my actual degree is history, but I had to kind of find this way to make sure that African American courses were included, and that was, trust me, I saw my actual degree is in that, so I have a very, very distinct passion for that. In addition to that, I actually taught history, American history, and high school administration, and I put this position. But the real point I want to make is that for us as a consortium, the way that we can help is that you give us some real specific tools. I mean, for example, each of the districts, 42 big that, we don't have a room. Each of us up and down the state, we have that opportunity. You know, I know, for example, put it on the computer. I'm already deeply engaged in pursuing food district, specifically, with the meetings, including the superintendent and all the people in it, because they are all members of our branch. And they all are members of our committee, and we meet with them each month and go over some of the fact that we need all of it. And community, we talk about some of the other issues, but that's one of the things that we would do, but from a consortium standpoint, I think knowing who our needs are and getting engaged with them and being actively engaged in the process. And really the model that the three of you have exhibited to come to the table with a mindset of not here to listen, but here to provide input and provide people a perspective that is vitally important to the education process. And I think also one of the things that we can do on the consortium, reading the report, both the 23, 24, beyond, and really getting engaged in that and making sure that when we go to specific meetings, that we can talk from an informed perspective. And it's not coming from the heart of city, but coming with knowledge and advice. And I think we take those two dynamics together because it will make us a consortium that will help us to help in the world. And also the community meetings that we've been having. I've already written down that people to make sure that I, as an individual who works that I can come and bring perspective of what we learn and how we can replicate some of the great work that's already in place. So I think today it's been very, very helpful. And I have pages of notes and things that I know that from our perspective, how we can get engaged and being stakeholders and making sure that we remind people that this work is a marathon. And that we also have to, we have to also be very strategic in this regard. And I believe in the political sense that 2024, starting January 25, we're going to have new people in key positions. And the governor's seat, in the city of Wilmington, we're going to be there. Newcastle County, I can speak more specifically about that. Then we have the council, executive, with lots of different seats at the board will be different. And I think we have to make sure that we enforce that when we sit there, we can help to make sure that the initiatives that are started continue, and that we're in this role and other roles that many of us wear multiple hats, we can make sure that one night and other things don't stop. The fact that they become bigger, better, and stronger, and more engaging and more influence. So I'm excited, and I see a real important role for us to play. And I know I'm going to stop talking about other members of the consortium, but you can sell on my works. I'm excited to quote that. I'm my favorite president. I'm fired up and ready to go.
As co-chair, actually, I was thinking about this. I feel, in my closet at First Down, I have closets of books written by African Americans and Black history. But I see the one thing that the consortium can do is ensure that this doesn't fall by the wayside. And that we can encourage you to continue to proceed and do what we can do to make sure that you have as much support as you possibly can. And continue just to continue to ensure that throughout I'm in your school, but I know that there are other school districts. And as part of the NAACP, I get calls about issues in other school districts. And discussing of the House bill has come up in more than one occasion. And I was on several of the Zoom calls, and I got frustrated, just for sitting there trying to talk about implementation. And I said, Jane, you need to just back up, because you know how sometimes we get upset and then speak out. So rather than speak out, I just stay quiet and didn't say anything. But I applaud you and thank you for coming. And I do applaud the word, really, the work that you're doing. And like him, I have notes, and I will talk to you later on the conservation because of the fact there's fun. But I see this as the equity consortium doing things and ensure that this doesn't fall by the wayside. Because the key point that he made, 2025 is going to make a big change in a lot of areas. And we have to make sure that we do everything now so that when we get to 2025 and all the changes are made, we can still move forward and we don't get hurt at all.
And I would say to respectfully, as a former school superintendent, I know all games very well. I know when people say they're moving forward and they're not.
Yes.
And so, I can assure you that I'm going to be at the table, being a stakeholder, and there are things that we can do that you can't. And that we're going to make sure that because this effort is too important.
Correct.
And, I know, frankly, that there are districts that are on different levels of continuum in terms of their excitement for this initiative. So what we gotta do is we gotta get everybody what it needs to be and negotiate those that you gotta do. But at the end of the day, we gotta make sure the people do the right thing.
And one of the reasons Doc's point is important, one of the things that we learned in talking with Monica and Michael is that the school system in Delaware is what is called a building control state, which means that the Department of Education doesn't have any kind of so it's important to have relationships with superintendents. We know how to, work with their people to implement HB 190 right, right. So let's say, for example, the Department of Education developed lesson plans that they offer to school districts. But whether or not the school districts use them and how they use them was for the treatment that school districts.
That's a great point, and you're so right that unfortunately, local control has its strength, but also there's some impediment aspects to it too. So it's us being very surgical and strategic and knowing who we have to work with and how we have to kind of advocate for. And each system is different. So that's why it's so important for us as a consortium to work through the leads and work with you and support and others in the community, so we can have a united effort to move forward and move the needle the way we need to.
So that's it. Man, what I like here, I want to go back to the question he started off earlier. The gentleman asked a question that he says, how do we measure success? Love that question. It's a very open-ended question. Well, what you said there, Reverend, you said exclusion of any history is incomplete. It's an incomplete record. So which means now what we're gonna do is we're gonna add to the record, we're gonna make some edits. The record, I like what you stated. The two things you said was subscribers and users. This is a consortium, subscribers and users. We build more what? Subscribers, and we have more users. Look at the generations a day. 5 generations a day in the workplace, right? Traditionals and veterans are moving on. Baby boomers are in the work theater, in the world today, and then beyond them are Gen Xers, and then beyond them are millennials and Ys and Zs. So we're talking about reaching others, future generations. Today's investment is tomorrow's future. We have to choose what we invest in and be careful of what we invest in, because then the yield or the return might be whatever. So this is good because this is future. It's not today. We're looking down the road. So what you're doing is establishing for those educators future generations that will be teaching, will be learning that we're all one unit, that it's all about humanity as a whole. And the true stories being told versus what stories have been told have been fragmented, small bits. When you gave the example of that village, that area, and you showed the depiction, and you said the lack thereof, then again, that was not complete history. That was a fragmented portion of what history looked like for those people. It's how they perceived it. Thank you, like you, Dr. Not so much most. Thank you, though.
The other thing I'm hoping too is youngsters who get HB198 content will be enlightened to come up that when they come adults and parents. You know, they involved in their students, formed to say these things.
Let's go.
Because you can teach about Christopher Columbus, you know, why can't you do something? Or the wrong banks.
Yeah, this type of stuff, two things will make the promise. We're going to make sure we can find that.
Okay.
But more importantly, we're going to make sure that we have representation at some of the things that we can do. So, please just let us know, again, specifically, how we can help, how we can really show you doing good work. You have some great things that you have in place, and we just want to help keep those things in place, and more importantly, we want to have the opportunity to replicate. Because you know, talk about how I can talk to you on those specifically.
I'd like to thank you for mentioning me, because it gives me an opportunity to respond, talking about drilling down and drilling horizontally, all different ways. One of the teachers at Cape Henlopen High School was very engaged and very supportive of what we're doing. She is a longtime English language arts teacher, and it's more than just reading, it's critical analysis, it's everything fast. She loves the Viking Gazette, and she said, you want to see if you can get, talking to me, you want to see if you can get a civics club established at Cape Henlopen High School for kids who want to dig in further on the issues that come up in things like these newspaper articles that I'm referring to. So I found out that because I'm a substitute teacher there, I could be an advisor to a club. I don't have to recruit any advisors, I have to recruit kids. Right? That's pretty cool, and that's the way the networking with the message takes place.
Last question, because we're gonna have, this is great. That's why we're never gonna come back. So, dialogue and conversation. It might be others,
I have a question, but more so a comment. Thank you guys for your time today, and I'm also looking at some of your articles now. I think one way that the consortium could also help is to get, provide some sort of framework for some of the select pieces. Because you guys have a lot of great content, but I know with today's generation, a lot of everyone is just swiping. So if you could tell this exact story, but just bring it to right here, I think that will double, if not triple, your audience, and that'll help you guys reach a greater capacity. Because there's no reason why everything that you guys are doing in Lower Delaware isn't being reached, you know, the Red Place School District, Christiana, so on and so forth. So I think that that'll be a great conversation we can have offline. Even if it's just down to, if you bring some of the cameras and you teach some of the students how to shoot, and then they can run the social media platforms, and then they can cross-connect with the students up top, then you're reaching the entire state of Delaware, which is a but.
Will you teach kids that take them over in high school in Sussex? How to do that?
I have a rough I can personally do that for you guys.
Okay.
We're gonna think about that. Yeah, that is great. That's great. That's a great example of how this process should and continue to work. And so what we're going to do now, thank you all very much. And this is it for, we're going to be meeting to come back. And this is going to be reaching, that seems like you're going to be giving all of us a good reason. And looking forward to accepting these things. And so we're going to take a 5-minute break. As a former principal, looking around, some of us are going to have to do that. Again, thank you very much. So we're going to have 5-minute break and then we're going to leave the next day. Thank you very much. No, thank you.
Very good. Matt, can you take notes?
Real quick, before we're putting that back in the mode. Hang on, we need a group photo. This is really nice. Yeah. Yeah. Everything right. Yeah. I own. I got great. You don't have to like this. Like this.
If you guys actually stand in front of the TV, that'd be great.
Next time, see what I can say.
You know what? Every movie I see, the inner circle of bad things happen. I inspire myself.
No, it's fine.
And it results.
Good stuff.
Hold it up high. I'm sorry. Excuse me, baby. It's urban league.
If you can't see the camera can't see you. That's good.
Which way we looking first?
Looking straight at me, Okay.
She's not giving me.
You gotta come on.
Can you slide, Dr. Freeman stuff that you stuff on the front?
Yeah, you get that slide.
Please. Keep sliding.
What about that?
Yeah, you move it on, get it all out. Get my best I can wear.
I got a water bottle. I did not sigh.
There you go, keep it.
Where's George?
Everybody in?
Did you play?
Pursuing day, come on the side, please.
Oh, there we go.
All right, perfect. Everyone looking this way. Big smiles, big smiles, big smiles. Looking at me, looking at me. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Hold that.
He's on a wedding or two.
Yes. That's right. You know.
1, 2, 3, looking this way. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. Hold that. All right, big smiles, big smiles. 1, 2, 3. Hold that, hold that. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. Perfect.
Thank you for it.
Oh, no, we're looking forward to working. Very much.
It's funny. And seeing you at Right.
So I'm only. All types of things, because I have all types of things. But the fact that you have
Yeah.
Very I avoided it with I'm not wanting to. I'm real fast. About Georgetown. Because my something to have a change. That's why I make it for picnic. Okay.
You want to make that?
Yeah.
Right there on Bridge Street. No better.
I love you so.
Yeah, they have a go ahead.
My annual.
You just got to go.
We don't. I saw this page, I was like, oh.
So I'm gonna take.
Here's a.
Well, mine is not.
Okay.
My life. But what I. But I bought it and I wasn't upset.
Well, I tell you.
He's in Jersey. And all I love it.
I have two positions.
Yeah.
And that's me out there.
Yes.
Next side. Yeah.
You have one representative family that's something like that. I did these.
He's waiting for 5 minutes.
But that's on the director.
One school that. This is one time I didn't bring the cards. I didn't get
It's not shit, your hand. I think she said they want something and she passed me, Jeff, well, all right.
Well, I have to get myself up, because I don't like doing this. If I can be there.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I look forward to that Saturday night. I think really just know if those, they're, you know, like 50 grand so I can, talk with them. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
God bless you. Thank you for the invite. I was telling Dr. Son. I'm living in the sunshine.
I'm giving you a call.
I'll talk to you later.
If we can get started, great work, great presentation and dialogue, and it was huge. Sometimes you're gonna say, where do we go? So what I would say, right now, we need to, go to item number 3, and approve of our November 20th meeting minutes.
Yes. Did everyone have the opportunity to review the minutes that were sent earlier? Yeah, yes, okay. Are there any corrections, additions, or edits?
If not, I would entertain, a motion for the approval of the November 20th minutes as amended.
So moved.
Ready, and second.
Wally Rushdan, a second.
Second. Thank you all very much. At this time, we're going to call the question. All those in favor of the motion that outlined, can you indicate by saying aye and you raise your hand? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstention. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Motion passes unanimously. Now, we are going to move to, discussion about item number 5 on our agenda. About subcommittee structure discussion, and, Madam Secretary, Director, can you start with the conversation, please?
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Williams. As you all know, that we, as the Richard Equity Consortium, have had 2 full subcommittee meetings, in which each subcommittee was taken about an hour to discuss the different recommendations that were set forth by the African American Task Force. So it's very excited to hear a lot of the conversation, and for one of those we discussed to separate housing, the issue of housing from the environmental and infrastructure subcommittee. Because it's so huge, it's big, as you know, Dover is dealing with this issue, a lot of the state is, but just recently, there was a hearing last week at the Dover City Council, we'll talk about the mini encampments, 10 encampments here in Dover, I think was in this area, up to 20. That's a lot, which is one, again, right on State College Road too. So this issue is very important, and there are a lot of conversations to be had, and I think a lot of people will move from the conversation to the implementation and action. So one of the thoughts and recommendations not only from the conversations that we had in the subcommittee was to remove housing from the environmental and infrastructure subcommittee to its own standalone subcommittee. So that's what we are now. We'll be open for discussion whether we should or should not do that. And then of course we'll bring it to a vote to make sure that we move in that direction.
And I would just start conversation saying, it's by the nature of its importance and the nature of the power it has, powerful gallery and just significance of it, I would just, you know, it's one thing that's thriving and bigger to further benefit.
It encompasses so much, so big, and we can't give it the focus that it needs for it. Yes, I agree that it should be alone, because it is something that encompasses the entire community action.
Other comments regarding that, regarding this issue?
Yeah, it's Willie Scott. I think that's an appropriate move. You know, as you mentioned just a second ago, I think the whole issue of housing in the state is such a broad one that to have it included in another committee or as a component of another committee, probably does not do the topic service. So I would totally support moving housing into a standalone subcommittee, given the breadth of the issues we've got in the state. Some of those are environmental issues, but there are, tons of other issues related to housing and housing equity in the state. So it's, I think it's an arable move.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments?
I echo all, for all the reasons. I think Mr. Scott just said it eloquently. I'd echo his statements. I think it's appropriate and correct move to make.
Good. Thank you, Walter. Yes. Somebody
This
else?
is Corey. Yeah, this is Corey, guys. I would agree also.
Great, thank you, Corey. Anyone else would like to make a comment? Or entertain a motion? If not, I'd like to entertain a motion regarding that, regarding the subcommittee.
I move to make housing its own separate subcommittee on the racial equity and consortium. Second.
Motion for me. And second. And I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion as outlined, indicate by raising your hand and saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to say the motion passed unanimously.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Dr. Freeman, I'd also like to recommend or offer myself to join that subcommittee. I know now we have a new problem, which is who's going to be on the committee. So I'd like to offer myself as one of those folks for your consideration.
Thank you. We duly noted, and you will be added. And anyone else, if you would like to make that announcement now, and you will get to start. We clearly need to know that it's a really easy process. You nominate yourself, we'll do it.
Jennifer Tompkins, for the building league, I nominate myself.
Dr. Williams?
Yes.
Hi, sorry I'm late, first of all, but very, very pleased that we now have a housing subcommittee, and I would also like to volunteer myself to be on that subcommittee.
Okay, and we're glad you can join us.
And
Gordon Spencer, the Racial Equity Consortium Ambassador. I would also like to nominate myself to that committee as well.
Thank you very much.
Jamie Howard,
Okay.
co-chair.
No. Did you make me to the front? Yeah. I'm going Thank you all very much. And as always, thank you, thanks. One of the highlights, people, standing up and looking carefully, and want to make sure that we can help the process better. So, it's yet again, another example. At this time, we have REC updates.
Before we move on to those quick updates, we want to make sure that we are adding additional people to the subcommittees. The members of the Racial Equity Consortium have been very wonderful in volunteering to be part of the subcommittees and being a part of the conversations and discussions. But we are now at a point where we would need or would like to have members of the community and subject matter experts to be a part of the conversation, so that we can really dive in and move forward towards the implementation of the recommendations. Therefore, we need to discuss the structure of the subcommittees and talk amongst ourselves and then get into the vote of how we would invite the public in. There are two trains involved. The first would be for the members of the Racial Equity Consortium to provide recommendation. I believe this person should be a part of this committee or subcommittee due to their work in the community, who they are, whatnot. The second is to send out a solicitation to the public. If you are interested in joining the subcommittee, please fill out this form and we will vet them and they can join us or not. We can do both, one or the other, or any other, a new idea that you want. So I'm open to any thoughts and discussion.
One thought I had for consideration, this is Wally Rushdan, is just trying to be thoughtful about all the work and burden of caring for the work that's on staff to the consortium, and considering some type of framework for the subcommittees that has a member sort of be the lead to kind of drive the work of the committee, as opposed to putting that on staff. You know, even something as simple as scheduling, I think is important, because I think that will drive participation. It's a whole effort to get people's schedules aligned to see when people can participate, and so I would recommend that for consideration in terms of, you know, people stepping up and considering to chair a subcommittee to alleviate some of that pressure on staff to the consortium. And I agree with this idea of bringing in subject matter experts to help drive the conversation, and also just having a timeline for, you know, when and how we want things to come out of the subcommittee, so that we're aligning with the consortium's overall deadline, so that information can get pushed up to the broader consortium out of the subcommittees for approval, and just bringing some structure around that.
All very good points, Wally. Thank you very much for us to consider. Other comments?
I think the sending out a request and getting a response would be the best way, because there, you know, we may be able to suggest someone, but then there may be someone else who has knowledge who would be interested in participating, and because of their interest, would take on the responsibility of coming to them. It might be better to open it up that way and have people who are interested in the opportunity to do that, to make sure that we don't have a certain number of each particular subcommittee. I think that is better.
So what we will do is create a dot form or Google form and add it to the Racial Equity Consortium's website, as well as send out more social media questions, so people can, sign up and.
It would be better coming from the website as opposed to yes, I have. That if people are visiting the website or visiting because of their interest, whereby that would give them the opportunity.
And it still allows us to always, if we know something, we can refer them to our process. Right, we're not being consistent process, gives a wide range of the opportunity to express their interest.
Okay, wonderful. So we will do that, so that we can increase the number of people who were on the, subcommittee, as well as, again, with Wally suggesting, as staff, we wholeheartedly agree to have, someone from the subcommittee to be the lead, so it takes some of the burden off of staff. So we shall do that. So it leads me into the Respect Consortium updates. As you all know, that we have launched social media pages, Facebook and Instagram. If you have not joined, liked, shared, or whatever it is you're supposed to do, please do so. And then there's also the website. So we will make sure that you all get those links. But you just type in Respect Consortium stuff on Facebook or Instagram, you will find. And it's our intent to try very hard to keep the content current. And we look forward to whatever content that you may have that you want to share. We shall receive. We're going to need as our communications manager or students who are here to make sure that we get current. I'm a little bit on Instagram, so we're with partnership. To work together to make sure that we are doing the best that we can with social media. And another thing that we are doing, at our last meeting, there was a presentation where I talked about our podcasts. We have thus far have 4 recordings. We are ready to be launched in February 1st, Black History Month. So Black History Month, we are going to launch Inside Equity podcast, as well as the Inside Equity newsletter. We are ready, we're in draft form, review right now. So we will definitely send that information out to all members of the Respect Consortium. If you can, please share with your networks and other stakeholders. So again, this is about awareness. So the topic that we talked about today, Black history. It's not that it didn't take place, people just don't know that it happened. So we are in this now awareness, getting the word out. So people can help us talk a little bit about the Respect Consortium and send things out, and we send them out to children that we created. We also, at the very next meeting, we will have racial equity consortium merchandise, either bags, cups, so that when you're out walking around, what? You have a wonderful shirt, you talk about the racial equity consortium. When you're in the store, you have the racial equity consortium, a little tote bag or whatnot, so we can get the word out. Again, we're trying to be intentional to bring awareness and start some dialogue. So in that same vein, the Racial Equity Consortium, we are working with the student chapter of the NAACP here on campus to host a little education registration rally. It will be late March or the still trying to get the exact date, but it's going to be student led, so that we can get the students engaged in advocacy at an early age. Most students at Delaware State are engaged, but we want to give them an opportunity to really be a part of the conversation. We're going to start with equity consortium town hall meetings for the students, talk about issues that are important to them, and then end with the rally, hopefully also with the candidates forum that evening. So those are some of the things that we're talking about for that. And job fair, more racial equity ambassadors, students who are looking to talk about issues that are important to them and the racial equity social. engaging all members of the community, so that we are out in the community more. And, so those are my updates. Wally, you had a question?
I do. Thank you for seeing my virtual hand. I was experimenting with it to see if it was doing what it was intended to do. So on the upcoming events on campus, let's sort of start there. It would be great to get that pushed out to us also as a follow-up, just so that we can be engaged as much as our schedules allow us to with some of the student-led efforts. And relatedly, on the podcast, thank you for the update on that. I have a question and a comment about how the conversations are being framed. I think, you know, as a extension of this committee and its work, I think it's important for us to be involved in the framing of the conversations that are happening, to ensure that they sync up in a way that's advancing our work. There's so many elements of equity and the conversation that we're engaged in that it's easy to, I think, have a helpful conversation that's engaging and interesting, but one that tactically may not be precise to advance some of the specific goals that we have here. And at the risk of sounding like I'm trying to be overbearing, I do think it would be helpful to have some type of process to engage this body on proposals for topics that are going to be the subject of podcasts, that are going to bear the imprint of the consortium, to just sync it up and to see if there's feedback, comment. Maybe there might be additional speakers, maybe there might be some content suggestions, but I do think it will be helpful to ensure that that doesn't happen in a silo. And that's not to cast aspersions on anyone or anyone how we be handled, but just to ensure it maximizes its potential for value to the work that we're doing. So whatever that process would look like, maybe I could imagine, you know, hey, the consortium is, maybe there's even a room for a subcommittee to be created. I don't know, but some process I think should be in place to allow that idea to maximize its potential.
And for it to link back here.
Yes.
Wally, thank you for the suggestions, and I definitely agree. When you're talking about racial equity and all of the sectors that we're focusing on, it's a very broad scale. So to your point, it can be very easy to get lost. To avoid that issue, what we've been doing is making sure that we look specifically at the 7 pillars that we focus on, and then making sure that the people that we bring onto the podcast do tie back, either them and or their efforts tie back to the consortium. A prime example would be, we actually had Kate just yesterday do a podcast recording, and we're talking about housing. The very first episode, we had someone from Cornerstone West Side, who's director of economic development, talking about small business and entrepreneurship. That talks about economic development. We had someone talking about Black maternal issues. That talks about health. So we're making sure that everything does tie back into it, because I know initially when I was sharing with the sewer some of the topics, that was one of the biggest things, because there are so many issues that we have to address that it can be things can easily get lost. So if anyone does have any suggestions in terms of how to create a process, or any suggestions for topics overall, I'm more than glad to hear them out, and of course just begin that conversation.
I appreciate that, Michael. And I think, just from my vantage point, I think, it would be helpful to maybe telegraph maybe the next, I'm not sure if you're doing this monthly, because I understand there's a lot of production, right? You got to edit and stuff, doing something more than that might, be a bit much with other commitments you have. But whatever the cadence and the pace is, maybe telegraphing the amount of episodes that would encompass before our next meeting, and sending out, say, hey, here are the topics we intend to cover and engage with during this period of time. Here's some high level thoughts we have about speakers. Do you have any suggestions? And that, I think, would be a way to engage and keep everybody in the loop. And then you have the full input of everyone to say, yeah, hey, Mike, you're on the right track. Go ahead, knock it out the park, or maybe consider this speaker or that speaker, and that can help inform the work moving forward. And it obviously requires a lot of advanced planning, but I think it would help elevate what you've already done and the great work you're already doing.
Thank you, sir.
Good points, Wally. Thank you. Michael, thanks for your information.
Yes, sir.
Let's get started.
So that's pretty much what we're planning to do, as we move forward throughout this, next few months. We are working to, also have an update, a written update of what the Racial Equity Consortium has done thus far, in preparation for the report to the General Assembly and the governor in August. So it's our hope to have it done by June. That's the plan. And then hopefully we're ready for the presentation. Right now, we're talking to other groups throughout the state, finding out what exactly it should look like. From what I understand, we can do whatever we want. There's PowerPoint, video, pretty great videos. And we'll probably do a combination of stuff like that. But that will be taking place through the next couple of months. You'll hear more about it at our next meeting. So I think that's all about updates.
Are we going to bring up about the empowering excellence? Did you want to discuss that at this meeting? Empowering excellence. It's going to give a seminar to have her kids with Black males.
Oh, yes. Black Male Initiative. It's a Black Male Initiative, February 22nd. The Racial Equity Consortium are sponsors in that. I was on this committee to plan. That's how we do footprint somewhere. Yes, that is an initiative we've invited, not you, but the goal is to invite young males throughout the state and surrounding areas of the Delaware state to talk about issues that are important to young Black men. The registration is open. All were invited to attend. So I would also encourage you to send that out to your networks, your church groups, civic organizations that don't young men to invite you to come to this conference.
What's the actual time? Okay.
It's 8 to 4.
And along those same lines, there are a lot of things that we will be doing. Again, participating in different activities, programs. There's a blood drive here hosted by the athletics department. The Racial Equity Consortium, the staff, we're going to go give our blood. Hopefully with a black t-shirt on, say, hey. So we are out there in the community, so we want blood, our videos here. So those things that do that in the community. I know over the holiday break, there was a toy drive at the Chase Center. And when others were there to talk about, to be a part of the working community. So things like that. So if you have, if you want us to be there, we'll definitely do so. And on those same lines of the podcast ideas, we're also looking for ideas for the newsletter as well. This first issue, again, is just an overview of what the Racial Equity Consortium. As we move down, there are going to be articles about legislation that we want to look at, hope to talk about. And one of our next meetings, we'll talk a little bit more about the legislation. Not necessarily a lot of them, we're very advocates for the issue that this has to fall under legislation. So that's it. Any other thoughts, questions, concerns that you will have for the staff?
This is Wally. Of course, I always have a comment. Just one additional thought about as you're in the community and you're carrying the banner of the consortium. I think people's natural reaction is going to be, how can I help, right? And how can I be involved with your work? And we already talked about this idea of expanding the subcommittees, which I think is an ideal way for certain people to get involved in the work. So I would, perhaps build out some type of apparatus so we can be responsive to say, hey, here's all the subcommittees we have. Here's a way for you to reach out about expressing your interest in the subcommittee or what we'd like to see from people to evaluate if they're appropriate subcommittee members. And secondly, I recall vaguely us talking about creating some type of mechanism to capture some public input comment virtually on our site. That may have already been built out, but if it hasn't, I think that's another way to make those points of contact meaningful, because people will see REC and are going to say, well, okay, great. How is that relevant to me? What are you doing? And I think that those are the two things that make that presence impactful, to say these are the two ways in which you can engage, and maybe there might be more ways, but I think that's important as we have that presence to be able to pivot to how we can engage people in the work.
I think another example of that would be some of the things that Dr. Sanders mentioned, some of the initiatives, community initiatives. I mean, us having that information when somebody said, well, what can I do? Oh, talk about this. These are some things that are, really are tangible things that you can do. And the things that, regardless of where they are within the state, they're things that we obviously pull together. A list of those things, you can say, oh, you have to know about this, whatever, this area of interest, and really kind of serve as kind of a conduit so the folks can really get used.
Okay, so what we will do is, there is a section on the website at which people can come and have comment when it comes back to us. We'll make sure that is readily known. We will also be going out, like we have a table somewhere, we'll have a QR code. People just scan to take them directly to the page, and whatnot. And then we'll make sure that we have that information available based on the experience. Thank you.
And again, I said it, but again, showing the role that we play in terms of facilitating and taking information and connecting together.
Absolutely. So before I end and turn it over to our chair and vice chair, just wanted to bring to your attention, the next meeting will be Tuesday, March 26th. We're trying to make it every other fourth Tuesday. And then just a couple of dates that are changed, Memorial Day in May, and then November 1st, the third Tuesday. We will have it here at Delaware State University in this room, and it'll also be available virtual. So please put that on your calendar. Subcommittee dates have not been determined, but when they do, it will give you more than at least 2 weeks in advance so that you all can put it on your schedule somehow. And that's it. I'll turn it over to Dr. Williams and Ms. Jane Covington, and then I'll bring in this team from Crawford so you all can be introduced to her. For those who here in person, we do have lunch provided by Team Crawford, who's a Black-owned woman restaurant who work here in Kent County. And we again want to highlight and promote the great work that she is doing, so that she kind of be introduced to you all, and then I'll turn it over. I'm sorry.
I learned from my pastor that you need to be short, sweet, talking like 4 years. So I just want to say thank you very much all for a robust conversation and engagement. Arlene, to you and your colleagues for just providing us with some very important information and some real important opportunities how we can engage. So, and to our members in virtual, thank you very much for your participation and your engagement. I just think that we're moving forward in this process, and thanks to our executive director and staff and Michael and others, and team, thank you very much. And it's always exciting to have young leaders in our midst. And it's awesome. Thank you very much. we look forward to you getting engaged and I'm gonna make the following promise to you. Next time, we'll see you engaged. We need to listen to you. You have important perspectives. And your leadership and engagement is greatly appreciated. So we look forward to you getting engaged and being about a part of what we're doing.
Should we go ahead, Dr.
James, are here? Right. Which in the front? Well, we just say thank you very much and we're going to close the meeting and and eat and have a chance to meet.
Everyone, this is Tamika Crawford. She is the owner of Tamika's Homestyle Eatery. She just wanted to say that she's catering today, so everyone just.
Nice to meet all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being back.
All right, appreciate you. Thank you. So very good.
And we'll enjoy the meal today. Thank you. We should like. And then thank you very much. We're adjourned and now we'll do something important.
There we go.
Facebook got started. Donation from Dallas.
We did.